Hello, thank you so much for joining us. As promised, this is our very first episode of The Art of Life. I am so excited to have you on board. We are discussing matters to do with life, the creativity of life, and that's why we've called it Art of Life. Now, today's episode is very, very unique because it's the very first one. Being the very first one, I'm going to share something that I think is very fundamental. Then from there, we're able to build on to the upcoming episodes that are coming up. Now, what we're going to discuss is something that is very dear to me. It's actually something that I have learned out of experience. Once I learned this concept that life is a race, I actually slowed down my pace. Let me rephrase that. Once I understood that life is a race, I actually slowed down my pace. It sounds poetic, but there is so much that I've learned from that. In that, when I got to understand that life is actually a race, I slowed down my pace. It sounds like a contradiction. Yes, that's why I've repeated it so many times, because people expect that people are supposed to be running. When you hear something like a race, you run as fast as you can. Actually, there's someone who says that the faster you run, the sooner you're done. But why I'm saying I slowed down my pace is that I understood that life is a race that is unique to itself. There is no other race like this race, because in this race called life, you actually compete against yourself. You compete not against opponents, not against any other person, but against yourself. Because life has been made out to be so unique that every individual on earth has their own unique race. Now, I'm calling it a race because ultimately it has a completion. Every journey has a completion. Every journey that you begin has a completion. And life is a journey as such that has a beginning and also has an end. Now, why I'm saying it's a race is because despite of it not having opponents, life still has to be lived out in a way that you are able to achieve the best speed that you can actually get in life. By speed, I'm not talking about rushing or competing with any other person. Life is a journey that has a reward at the end, and that's why I'd call it a race. Now, this race having no opponents means that sometimes you may be relaxed. You may feel like, what do I have to compete for? What do I actually have to gain by doing this life in a particular way? It's because in every race, there are particular guidelines that have been specified. If you run contrary to the rules and regulations, then you may be disqualified. There's a scripture that Paul quotes and Paul mentions. He says that I run my race so that I may not be disqualified. So there is an option of being disqualified from life. So as much as it's a journey, yes, it's a race because there is a chance, there is an opportunity of being disqualified. And now that brings me to why I slowed down my pace. I slowed down my pace because I realized that it is very, very important to understand the direction you're heading into rather than just having motion. Because direction is far much important than motion. Many people right now across the globe are in a rat race. People are chasing after this, chasing after something else, and we are all caught up in that, where you feel like my friends finished school, they graduated, they got a job. My other friend didn't even finish school, they got into a very big job. Your friends get chosen for particular applications, for interviews, and you're still not chosen. So you feel like, wow, I need to do this like my friend did this. I've been in that trap where I feel, wow, my friend got this, how come I'm not getting it? And most of the times, if we follow that kind of pressure, we end up trying to duplicate their lives rather than running our race. And that's why I am very, very specific by saying that all of us have a unique race. Now, having a unique race means that my journey may be different from yours, and your journey may be different from mine. So when I look at your life and I start admiring it, and I'm like, why don't I have what you have? Why don't I have this? Why am I not doing this? Then you are comparing your race to someone else's race. So in the same case, you may be comparing your life to someone else. You may be comparing your race to someone else, and may put you in a place where you feel pressure. So in this episode, we're trying to tell you that there is no need for you to have so much pressure. The pressure should be internal, coming from within and not coming from outside, because you have a unique race. Now, understanding this race is what makes us know how fast or how efficient we're able to run. So my challenge to you this day is for you to inspect and find out, how am I running my race? Am I running the right race? Have I at some point veered off? Because in races we have lanes. Have I moved from my lane and got into another lane? Because you may be trying to overtake, but you're actually living your own lane. And as I began by saying, races have regulations. You moving from your lane would actually cost you so much time. Sometimes you may actually have to restart the race again. Hopefully in life you don't have to do that. But it's very important that you don't fall into the temptation of wanting to run into someone else's race. Now, talking about race, running this race, I want to challenge you this day that you go back to the person that has given you this task, because the rewarder is one. So if you run to please any other person, the audience, the spectators, and you move off your lane, the person who's supposed to reward you would actually look at you and wonder, why? So the question that you have to put for yourself is, what race has my maker designed for me? Because God has designed a specific journey, a specific route for you to take. And if you follow that route, it actually has everything that you need. It has nourishments. Yes, that race, that route may actually involve pits and prisons like Joseph, but the outcome, the final outcome, will be something that you would live for. You know, Joseph is a very good example of such a person who actually followed his race. He ran his race so well that in the end he was saying that whatever you did to me, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Because he went through different things, but whatever he was going through, he was going into pits, he was taken out. He went into Potiphar's house. Yes, he is a slave, but he was still getting favor. Yes, he got into a mess and he was accused falsely and landed into prison. And ultimately, even in the prison, he was favored because he was running his race. Now, like I've said, running your race may involve getting into some challenges here and there. I'm actually reminded of a scripture in Matthew chapter 7 from verse 23 to verse 25 there. And that scripture talks about two builders. The builders, one built his house on sand. I may actually equate that to building a beach house. You build a very beautiful beach house, but you built it on sand. You may even build a flat, a bungalow, whatever it is, but you built it on sand. And then this other gentleman, whether he built a vingira or he built a one-bedroomed house, a bedsitter, this man built his house on a rock. I'm not saying that just because you're building on the rock, you build a bedsitter. I'm just saying, regardless of the structure that this guy built, the fact that he built it on the solid foundation, the rock, when the winds came and blew, when the storm came, when all those things came, because they will come to each and every one of us, this person was able to stand. His structure was able to withstand the test of time. So what I'm advising you to do is to inspect your foundation. Inspect how you have been building. Inspect how you have been building your career. Inspect how you're building your relationship. Inspect how you're even building your own mansion. Because recently we are hearing that there are some houses that are being destroyed. And we heard so many times where people build houses and they are destroyed. Sometimes it's they're innocent and it has nothing to do with them, but with the policies and how the nation is run. But sometimes people build on the wrong foundation. So what I'm challenging you to do is to inspect, because for you to run your race effectively, you have to start very well. And you might have started very badly before. But once you realize that, wow, I actually need to run this race like this, you're able to retrace your steps and now begin that journey again. And because you're now wiser, you're even able now to run the race better. So don't fear that, time has already gone. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Don't compare your race to any other person. But it would be very, very futile. It would be very, very sad if you finish life, if you finish this race, and then the person who gave you this race actually says, I never knew you. He comes to a point of actually not recognize who you are. You know, that's the same question that Adam was asked in the garden. Adam was asked by God, where are you? You know, that question triggered my mind to think a lot, because when God, who is omniscient, or God who knows everything, asks you, where are you? Then it ceases to be a question of he doesn't know where you are, but rather he's asking you whether you know where you are. So Adam was asked, where are you? And now I'd like to ask you the same question regarding your race. Where are you in your race? How are you building? Because we are assured of storms coming. We are assured of winds blowing. Earthquakes and all those things come. But the only way of safeguarding that which God has given you, safeguarding that which you have, is by building well, is by running the race effectively. And I'll quote Paul again. Paul says that I ran this race effectively, that I may not be disqualified. He says he's not boxing as if he's boxing in the air, as if he's just punching in the air. His punches are targeted. His punches are very well targeted. So are your punches targeted? Are you running the race effectively? Because on Art of Life, we are looking at all those aspects of life. We are looking at what affects your life. We're looking at all those different components of your life. So I hope that what you have had in this story, in this what I have shared, is able to make you think, to make you reflect, and see how you're able to run your race better than you have ever run it. So don't give up. Don't be swayed by how people are progressing. Your life may be going slow. It may have had a slow pace, but it's better that you actually take slow steps, but those that are sure. So instead of motion, focus on direction. I want to repeat that. Instead of motion, focus on direction. Don't be like the matatus, the manyangas that will move kilometers and miles, go round, go through bypass, go through Karen, go through so many different towns, and you're heading to Rongai, when the journey could have been very, very straightforward and very easy. So I am challenging you this day. Talk to your maker. Get to know what God has designed for you. Get to know what package God has for you, because understanding the package that God has for you, then you're able to run knowing that I'm running for this. Paul would run and say that he has a crown that is set before him. And the same thing Christ did. He was the scripture tells us that despising the shame, Christ despised the shame for the glory that was set before him. He would experience shame and look at the glory. He would envision the glory. That's why it's important to know which race you're running, because once you know the race, then you're able to know, wow, this is what is before me. When Joseph would go through the pit, when he would go through prison, when he'd go through Potiphar's house, he'd actually envision his brothers bowing down. And maybe in his mind, he didn't actually understand the full picture, but he knew that God had something big in store for me. Once you know that, you're able to understand that indeed, because God has something big in store for me, then I'm able to run my race faithfully, consistently. So if you have been running your race the right way, and if you already know your race, I encourage you to continue. Don't be swayed by how fast others are running. Don't be swayed by how much accolades and how much applause people are getting. Look at your life and know that God has a race for you. So enjoy that. May you digest this week. May you focus on direction this week. Focus on direction rather than motion. May you be able to focus, and may you be able to rethink and talk to God and know, God, how have I been running my race? Have I been running it well? Because all of us desire to be told, well done, good and faithful servant. So I'll end it there. I'll appreciate your feedback. Let me know what you think concerning this. Let me know what else you're able to add regarding the same. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can share if this has blessed you. Share with your friends. Share with anyone. Those that probably are going through the pressures of having to run competing. Slow down your pace. It's a race, yes, but you can slow down your pace and get to see direction-wise. Then you're able to do it effectively. God bless you. Thank you so much.